There's a peaceful solution. It's called a peace revolution. Now let's take back America. There's a war and we're in it, but I know we can win it. So let's take back America. It's a dream, so believe it. Get ready to receive it, and let's take back America.
To me, the most important thing is the war on terror. And that's where we put our focus and our emphasis, and the other stuff will follow. We're not going to die of global warming, but we might die of terrorism very, very easily.
They're freedom fighters. They're protecting their own land. If someone came into this country right now and invaded it and said that, we got to do this, we got to do that, you're going to prison because we think that you're loyal to this, because you want to stand up for your rights, you want to protect your home, you want to protect your family, what would we do? The rational thing is to defend yourself.
I think that there are instances where it's justified to use force in situations where people are in danger or where there's crimes against humanity going on.
I mean, it happened, and I mean, it's there, but I think that our soldiers should be coming home already. I think this is way too long.
I don't think so much it's a political war as much as it is a religious fanatic war. They seem to be stuck in the Middle Ages in their religion, where now they want to force it on everybody else.
I had the opportunity to join the Marines and go to the war, but why? For oil prices? I'm gonna fight for another man to get rich when I could be getting rich myself? What for?
So the military-industrial complex is definitely what has been perpetuating prosperity in America for so long that we don't even know how to get rid of it.
And I think we're on our path to self-destruction in many ways, I think humanity, civilization has taught that when empires increase, they fall.
We are babes in the wood when it comes to plotting and scheming in terms of the Middle East, which has been fought over thousands of years.
We not only sell guns and arms to the American people to go to other places to supposedly serve democracy, but we sell the very people that were fighting those guns and arms. So you tell me what's really running the show. I would say multinationals and the military-industrial complex.
But history teaches us that we don't ever learn, because if we did, history wouldn't repeat itself.
I know that when I was very young in the 60s, I knew about Vietnam and I had friends and relatives there, but I was too busy being a teenager to understand what was going on. Now that I'm the mother of children in the military, it hurts me to know that we've lost so many of our own people to a war that I'm not real sure of, but I'm proud of what they're doing.
Working with vets, which is something I've never thought about doing, and I'm not pro-war, but I just feel like we have so many soldiers out there that it's something that I can do.
If I'm threatened, if my family's threatened, if my friends are threatened, and our freedom is threatened, I have no problem standing up for what is right and fighting for my freedom.
I would fight in a war if it was a noble cause, but until the right facts come my way, I would never do it. Especially, my dad was in Vietnam, and so that alone really kind of got me eerie onto the whole subject of it.
Always with guns working, it is no good.
And our defense system and North Korea and what's going on there.
We really are the only people taking care of the world at this point.
And I would never fight for any imaginary borderline. It is one world, one peaceful world. We should be peaceful living.
The promotion and the protection of freedom and democracy around the world.
It's about domination of people, and about the powerful just using all they can to subjugate, the people where they want resources.
Every day I wake up, live life, no fear of terrorists, you gotta do what you gotta do, and I'm here serving hot dogs, so.
We have lots of freedom here, and we need to recognize recognize it and act responsible with our freedoms so we don't lose them.
Well, I think personal freedom in America has always been a fallacy to a certain extent.
Personally, I would be an advocate for a universal identification card so that everybody in this country was identified for who they are and what they are.
That you don't really have any privacy. If somebody wants to find out anything about you, they're going to find out.
How, should I say, things are not as private as everyone thinks, like the internet. If you just type, your phone number, if someone gets your one number about you, they can find everything about you. So that kind of scared me a little bit.
You can tell just from the spam on your computer that everybody is watching you.
Well, if you're living right and you're doing right and you're for the United States and for our country, I could care less they wiretap.
The world we live in today, post 9/11, we've been convinced that we live in a dangerous world. Do we? I think we do. At the end of the day, though, what rights are we willing to give up for that freedom? And I want that balance of the fact that we're prepared to fight the enemies that are out there, but not losing freedoms along the way.
We have more freedom to express our views, to disagree with our people in power and politicians. Other countries, they can cut your tongue off or disappear.
I think it's been really an insidious thing with political correctness has come in, and freedom of speech has been eroded, and we haven't noticed it particularly. But there's so much stuff that you're not allowed to say anymore, things you can't think.
Believe that things are being done wrong, and you say something about it, somebody finds a reason for you to be incarcerated. Somebody finds a reason for you to be out of the picture.
They could pretty much say I'm a terrorist if I'm speaking about politics. They could single me out as a terrorist, and God knows what they can do after that. You can't fight, the government.
I don't think it ever was a free country, really, because the people who actually framed the Constitution, all but two were, rich white businessmen, and you really didn't have. I mean, they all owned slaves too. So how can you really put these amendments down about freedom and equality when you're contradicting that in your daily life when you actually own slaves? Maybe it was a free country for some people. If you were rich, if you were white, and if you were male, others were left out of that process. They were left out of that whole agreement that was written down on a piece of paper saying we have this right, we have that right.
If you go to a house where you have very good friends and you're very intimate to them, I think you can really say what you think. If you go to a place where you don't know everybody, I learned to just shut up sometimes.
We still are entitled to take our life in our own hands, and sometimes that's what we do. Is just by living, you take your life in your own hands. And we have succumbed to this sense that Big Brother needs to protect us.
Because they have cameras watching everything you do in America. And a lot of people aren't aware of it until you see it on the news and they decide to expose it to you through national television or something.
I think we all live our lives here, blind of the fact that we're being watched by other people, by other government, by other things, but the fact is that we are. And so we act as if we're completely free, but it isn't necessarily always true.
Certain things that need to be done for security, but I think we've just gone way over the top.
There is a illusion of freedom in the U.S. Comparatively, we're a lot more free than other countries. But the illusion comes in when you're being monitored.
The things that this country was founded on were ideas of freedom. But it was coupled with this weird Puritanism at its beginnings too. So there are these forces at work for freedom and sort of for inhibiting that.
It's hard to find a job right now, which you need to appreciate the freedoms that we have in this country. If you have an empty pocketbook and you're living out of your sleeping bag, civil liberties are just high-minded words that don't really mean a lot when you're trying to find food.
At age 5, I walked a mile to school, You wouldn't let a 5-year-old kid walk by himself to school today. In that sense, because we're less safe than we were, we have less freedom than we had.
My freedom sits inside of my own belly. It's not something that, even if I were to be, shackled in chains, the freedom of spirit and freedom of my heart and freedom to make my own choices is what is most sacred to me.
Even to this day, we look at things like the prison industrial complex, and we try to say that slavery is over with, but if you really look at that system, that whole institutionalized form of racism, capitalism, and greed, it's still there.
I just got out of state prison.
My father, who's done 15 years.
No kidding.
Currently, still doing another 5 years.
Maybe a little tougher on crime, act the death penalty for murder and capital offenses for police officers and stuff like that, automatic death penalty.
There are political prisoners in America, and most of them are folks that have been arrested for drugs, who have diseases, who have been basically put into the prison system.
I started out with Tehachapi in the 80s, and I went to CNC, but they kicked me out of there, and then went to Vacaville.
Most of the folks that are incarcerated are generally poor people who cannot afford good representation, and they end up being part of the system, and it's become a profit center.
I think it was bullshit what happened. Excuse my language.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I think what happened was it shouldn't have been that long. How he shouldn't have got 20 years.
And they've privatized prisons, and when they privatize things, it's all about the bottom line. So therefore, the people that are being incarcerated today are not being given very good health care. They're not being given rights at all. They have lost their constitutional right.
You cannot help but see that there's a systematic curtailing of our civil rights and our civil liberties.
My ancestors who were brought here forcefully from Africa against their will, were they involved in the Constitution, the process of actually deciding what the values of this country was? No, they weren't. They were left out. We were in shackles and chains and lynched on trees and put on postcards to show our deaths around the country and around the world. Same thing with Native Americans or the original indigenous people of this continent. They were basically wiped out.
I think on the freedom issue, there's a challenge, and that is our incredible advancements in technology, in particular communications technology, and the way that the consolidation of power of these media companies has occurred has led to a massive dictation by a very small group of people who are benefiting at the expense of the many.
Please remember to like, share, or leave a comment.
There's a peaceful solution. It's called a peace revolution. Now let's take back America. There's a war and we're in it, but I know we can win it. So let's take back America.